Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back with another great commentary. Hold on, I still haven't done one of these types of videos in a while, so I'm working on the camera here. Good enough. Good enough. I wanted to do a video to talk about Roosh and his transformation. There was a post recently on Purple Pill Debate about Roosh and how he's changed, or the new Roosh who's into fidelity, Christianity, family, and stuff like that. So we'll just start at the beginning with the story of PUA, the red pill, stuff like that. And I've talked about it before, but PUA started in the early to mid noughts. That's when it became popularized. But when it really became big online and as a subculture was more in the mid to late aughts, really more the late aughts, with the red pill philosophy. And the red pill philosophy was promoted by what's sometimes called the 3 R's. Roosh, Roisy, and Rollo, for Rollo Tomassi. Now, I've never read much of Rollo Tomassi's stuff. For me, I got introduced. I'm not sure how I found it, but I found Roisy and in the late aughts. And I never really tried to apply any of the stuff myself. I mean, maybe I was kind of like aware of some of the things, but I certainly never went out and tried to like game or anything like that. Nor did I really use any game tactics with any girls that I knew. Not that I was even really meeting a lot of girls who I wanted to romance there. It was more something that I just had in the back of my mind. But I really did enjoy reading the forums, although I never participated. You younger guys probably wouldn't either won't really remember or wouldn't be aware of it, but like the late aughts, early tens was a very special time on the internet, because it was pre-social media, but us guys who had grown up really without the internet being a big part of our lives, we were coming of age, and there was things like then he was called the angry Nintendo nerd, now he's called the angry video game nerd, and it was fun to like watch videos of his on YouTube talking about like games that we all remember being frustrated over when we were kids. And it was just a really fun time on the internet. The internet is more like, I don't want to say more polished, professionalized, and with centralist media. I mean, part of it's just where we're not, like, I'm not young anymore, so stuff like that. But I don't know, it was really fun back then. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. So anyway, these 3R guys, the Rollo, Roisy, and Roosh, they promoted this red pill philosophy, which, like I said in another video, it was a concrete philosophy behind the PUA, which the initial PUA thing really had no philosophy behind it. It was just about picking up girls, mainly about picking up girls in the nightclub scene. And so that's technically where games started, but it was the popularization and philosophization of it comes from the 3 R's. And you see, like I said, I've never really been that familiar with Rollo, but I don't read Roisy anymore, and I never read Roosh that much. But there has been a growth, change, whatever you want to call it, and so recently, often what you've seen with is you saw the red pill as time went on become increasingly political, increasingly right wing, and anti-liberal. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what's happened to it, and become less and less about game, which used to be the focus. In the early days of the red pill, you could be left, right, whatever. It wasn't even people of all races and stuff, and it became, as time went on, more of just a white male, a right wing white male thing. Increasingly angry too. And especially on Roisy's old board, which has since been shut down. I think he still posts on. I don't know if he posts on on Twitter or not, but I believe he still posts on sort of Gab. Anyway, so Roisey, or not, but I did read Roisey for quite some time. I think even as late as 2016, I was still, checking out Roisey occasionally. And well, yeah, like I said, it did change. There's only so much you can say about games, so it became, increasingly political. Now, the same thing happened with Roosh too, and Roosh was always the most systematized of all the pickup artist guys. He was also probably the least obsessed with the whole alpha thing. He was more like he had a much more autistic way of looking at it, like do this, do this, do this, and so and he was just, he's an interesting guy, but a very strange guy, even stranger than the other two. Not that now I don't know how successful Rolo is, but Roisey is, I think, just kind of a mid-wage government worker, and Roosh is very intelligent, but basically just an underachieving, non-achieving mama's boy, who mostly, who lives off, money he makes from his books and stuff like that, his books and his donations from his fans, and maybe some private coaching that he was doing back in the day. But anyway, Roosh was really interested in traveling the world and essentially sex tourism. It was called Getting Your Flag, and so he would go to all these places, try to fuck women from all different countries and stuff like that. It was weird, but whatever. But you could kind of understand it in his late 20s. Like even by late 20s, you should be settling down and getting a job and stuff. But then, as time went on, it became increasingly more pathetic. So he was still doing this kind of sex tourism stuff to like in Eastern Europe, like almost until pretty recently. So anyway, now he says he's changed, and people are talking about it. And one thing that it seems that was the real catalyst was the death of his sister, who he was always extremely close to. It sounds like his sister. I didn't actually read Roosh's story about it. I don't want to because I'm sure it would be difficult to read. It sounds like his sister died a very nasty death from illness. I'm guessing probably cancer. I know what it's like to see somebody close to you die that kind of like dragged out, waste away type death, and it sucks. And I believe it was very painful for him, and I do believe it maybe pushed him to change a little bit. But I guess what I'm saying, a lot of people on Purple Pill Debate were saying that like this whole thing is just a reaction to the death of his sister, this whole new Roosh thing where he's banned talk of pickup now, even though that's how he got his start. He's all about, Christianity now and family and stuff like that. And so people are saying, well, like his sister's death made him change, and my position is that he really has not changed at all. That the not fundamentally at least, and the superficial changes you see have been going on for a very long time. And if you followed his work at all, they've been going on for quite some time. And the death of his sister, as much pain as I'm sure it's in, and it does seem like it's kind of started to make him lose his mind a little bit more. But I don't think, in terms of philosophy, I just don't think it's had an impact. I'm not sure it's even really speeded up the transition. So, like I said, he used to be a totally hedonistic PUA type. He was, a tall and not great looking, but decent looking guy, and an exotic looking, because he's dark with, I believe his father is from Iran and his mother is from Turkey. So, he's got those, exotic, I don't know if you can call him good looks. He's one of those guys whose like styling makes him look worse than he is. Like when he's clean shaven and he does his hair nice, or at least when he did when he was younger, he was a handsome guy, and he was, I think, about 6'2" with a solid frame, and he's in great shape. So, and there's definitely women who disliked him for his message, who I do think from the way they were acting, they found him attractive. Either because they found his, personality somewhat attractive, or more likely they just physically found him attractive. And, but, So anyway, he was initially, like I said, more just a kind of hedonistic PUA type. He's doing a lot of this stuff. He's from Toronto, I believe, and he was doing a lot of this stuff in Washington D.C., where I mean, the women in Washington D.C., from what I've heard, are the absolute hardest to deal with, which is saying quite a bit. Although I think Toronto might be even worse. Um, but anyway, so yeah, he started out that way, and that was mostly what his stuff was about. Was just about, and so sometimes there'd be some resentment, like like why do girls have to be so difficult to deal with? But a lot of the stuff he would say would be really funny. He would make videos showing what he did, and stuff was funny. And then and the board was a relatively lighthearted place, but you know he was, even then, I'm talking in the late aughts and early tens, he was just starting to see signs of real frustration and unhappiness in him, that this lifestyle wasn't fulfilled. And a lot of the traveling he was doing was to, like, basically because he felt empty. He felt rootless and empty. Like, on one hand, he didn't really want to settle down and have kids, and on the other, and give up this hedonistic lifestyle. And on one hand, this hedonistic lifestyle, it was like he was searching for more and more highs to just kind of cover up the pain and more novel experiences. And he's always been really into these Eastern European countries. I don't know if that's just his type of women, or if it's because his money goes further there, or what, because it doesn't seem like he's ever bothered to learn the languages of any of these places. So he would be bouncing back between Eastern Europe usually and the United States for a long time, making these videos, making books, talking to his fans online. But, like, just like I said, I can't speak for Rollo, but just like Royce, he got less and less about women and more about political stuff. You were already seeing that with Roosh. Already seeing more stuff about about Christianity, about traditionalism. In fact, way before this stuff with his sister, he said that he was going to get out of PUA, and although he didn't delete all his stuff at the time, but he said, I'm now transitioning to neo-masculinity. And this is, even in his PUA days, was always the primary obsession with him, was this thing about masculinity. Because if you read the stuff from the late aughts that he's talking about, his complaints about American women is that they're not feminine enough. He would say that, the difference between, not that they're not pretty enough, that they're not feminine enough. You'll hear often guys complain about women being too feminist or even too fat, but that's not the stuff he would complain about. He would talk about, like, you would see women and men, and that there was no difference in America like you would see in Latin America. And, like, one thing he would talk about is, with women he was with in Latin America, how they would do feminine things, like they would wear dresses. And one thing that he really liked was, like, like, after he slept with them, they would do stuff to impress him, like make him a sandwich or something like that. And this is something that really meant a lot to him. Like that, men need to be masculine, women need to be feminine, and women need to serve men. I'm not here to critique that ideology. I'm just saying that this is what he was always about. Okay, it wasn't the pickup stuff. He was never about the pickup stuff, and that was just something he was interested in. So yeah, he's grown out of that. But the thing is, then he got onto more neo-masculinity, which was just focusing on it, and then in traditionalism. And he has been saying for a while, that there is no tradition, there's no such thing as secular traditionalism. These traditional lifestyles, these traditional roles for men and women, were always based on religion, whether it be Christianity or Islam, depending on where you were. So, in fact, it's like, you don't hear about the red pill, the blue pill, and stuff. Well, Roosh was for a while talking about the God pill, and so it's not anything new. So then his sister dies, and that's when he. Sorry about. I'm not sure why my nose is itching so bad. His sister dies. Obviously, he's distraught. And that's when he does the thing. He talks about how the sleeping with all these women never made him happy, and that he's not going to sell his PUA books anymore, and he's banned PUA talking on his sites. And so now he's talking about this promoting Christianity and stuff, particularly a right. I don't know if he's converted to Catholicism himself, but he's certainly friendly with this Michael Jones guy who's big on, God, my nose, who's big on traditional Catholicism, which is, you know, Catholicism from pre-Vatican II. So it's a much more hardline version of it. Sorry guys. So yeah. So anyway, though, but anyway, this goes back, and hopefully I'm not repeating myself too badly here, but, you know, I saw this thing on Purple Pill Debate, and they're talking about his change, saying like, well, can we like forgive him for some of the bad stuff he did? And it's like, and, you know, some people were talking about like, you know, because a lot of people are saying like, so I think it was one woman on Purple Pill Debate was saying like, this is, he went from being extremely hedonistic to extremely religious, and this is not a sign of a balanced personality. But if you see if you've been following him, the transition isn't like that at all. But another thing is, you know, like one thing that people often bring up is his you know, his, that he advocated to make rape legal. And really, if you read that rape legal thing, the thing about making rape legal, it was, you could just, it was a mixture of tongue-in-cheek and thought experiment. He was not seriously advocating legalizing rape. I mean, he's kind of a spurred to even say it because he knew how it would be taken. I mean, it was, I think that's what it was, a mixture of trolling, thought experiment, and joke. And it was all three of those. And I'm not sure even he himself knows how much of which was which, you know, because he probably, I guess he feels like any publicity is good publicity, although it certainly changed, certainly hurt his brand. But although I guess he doesn't care because, you know, he only cares about the people who are sending him money, who probably all love that stuff, you know, and they also got that he wasn't being serious. But he himself, like I mentioned in a previous video, he admits to a rape in one of his books. He doesn't describe it as a rape, although he says it could be close. But if you read what he says what happened, I mean, it was rape. If it happened the way he said it did, it was rape. And, you know, despite his supposed religious conversion, he has not repented. I mean, he's talked about how he's defiled himself, how he's sinned against Jesus by defiling himself, stuff like that. He's never shown any remorse towards the victim. So this is the same guy. This is the same, and he has not changed. And I want to dial back really quick here. Remember how I was talking about, like, how he was talking about neo-masculinity and traditionalism and stuff like that. He'd been doing that for a while. Another thing is, you could see again pretty recently, is, and this is very common on the right. I don't know how long this has been going on, but he's one of the biggest examples of it. But he even got alt-light types like Stefan Molyneux, if I'm saying his name right. But Roosh has this sort of obsession with fertility. He kept talking about like how he was seeing attractive women, and instead of fantasizing about, you know, fucking them, he was talking about seeing like how glammed up she is on the street, and thinking like, well, why is she studying? She needs to be having babies, and just babies. Like he's got this obsession. I don't know if it's like kind of like pregnancy fetish or what, but that's really what it seems like. And so you could see that, yeah, the next step was of course always going to be this religious thing, but it's a religious thing that's in service to his weird ideals that were already there. So it's not like it's something like his sister died and then he found God. I mean, that's just not what has happened. Rather, he got older, he was miserable, and his views have been changing for a while, or his focus has been changing for a while. But the core has always been the same. This, you know, be a man. Women need to be feminine. Women need to serve men. That's what he's always been about, and he has never wavered on that. That was what he was talking about in 2008, and that's what he's talking about in 2020. And my guess is, if he's still around, that's what he's going to be talking about in 2030, 2040. I mean, hopefully he's still kicking by then, because he does seem like he's kind of going off the rails here. So yeah, I mean, sorry this video wasn't very interesting, but just some background and my thoughts on Roosh. See you